Senator Marcus, for what purpose you rise?
To speak to the motion.
You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I grew up in a political family. My father was an elected Republican. Like many of you, he was a conservative with a bit of a libertarian streak. He believed in small government that stayed out of people's business and personal choices, in democracy that did not dictate morality based on one religion, and he believed in the importance of personal freedom. So, my Republican father refused to ever vote to restrict abortion access. He said he didn't want the government controlling him, and he didn't think it should control women either. He wasn't a doctor, and he thought that forced pregnancy was un-American. He had 2 daughters and a wife who he respected, and he wanted us to have equal rights. I remember when I believed that the Republican Party stood for small government and personal freedom. We can debate exactly when that changed, but it's clear that if you do this to North Carolina's women and girls, if you make SB 20 the law here, you can't claim to stand on those principles anymore. Nothing else you could do will erase the harm that this bill will do to women and girls, our health, our status in society, our ability to plan our families and our careers. It undermines our ability to trust that you care about what happens to us, that you trust us to make our own decisions, that you value our lives, our contributions, our humanity. This bill is a slap in the face, it is a muzzle over our mouths, and it is a straitjacket on our bodies. It is honestly hard for me to believe that my government would do this to me, to my daughters, to my friends, to their daughters. In many cases, we will be forced to continue unwanted and unsafe pregnancies, to give birth against our will, to risk our lives as we are forced to forego or delay treatments that are incompatible with pregnancy, like, for example, cancer treatments, mental health conditions, drug addiction, and miscarriages, because those conditions may not meet your narrow exceptions, and you have blocked our ability to access abortion care if they don't. I can tell that you're feeling the heat of the public outrage about this bill. I assume that's why you're moving it so quickly, literally the fastest I have ever seen a bill move in the General Assembly. You're learning that this bill is much worse than you thought it was. Doctors are telling you that how it will force OBGYNs to leave our state because of the criminalization of doctors, the incentive to sue the doctor, the vague exceptions to the ban that they can't understand and can't apply, the unnecessary barriers to access, so that even healthy pregnant patients who plan to carry their babies to term will have trouble finding OB care in North Carolina. You're hearing how doctors who specialize in maternal fetal medicine, those are high-risk pregnancies, they won't practice in North Carolina either. You're hearing how the narrow exceptions that you put in this bill are not adequate. They're not workable in reality. Pregnancy is complicated. You're hearing how women who experience medical complications or have severe mental illness after week 12 will have to wait until they are at risk of death before a doctor will be able to terminate their pregnancies, even an unviable one. It's not enough that she be in a condition for which the standard of care would be to offer her the option of abortion. No. Your bill requires that the woman's life be in imminent danger, like she's entering sepsis, or her vital signs are crashing from preeclampsia. You're thinking about how rape and incest victims will be forced to carry to term if they don't report the crime to their doctor by your arbitrary deadline. You're thinking about all the scenarios in which sexual assault victims may not get to a doctor or find the courage to tell what happened to them in time. and how your bill will cut them off and leave them with no options at that point. You're realizing that doctors are required to report incest and rape of a minor to law enforcement, thus triggering mandatory interaction with police in order for that child to get the health care she needs. SB 20 causes more trauma for her. So here we are with this flawed, draconian bill that was drafted in secret by certain members of your caucus, and you're forced to decide if you still feel comfortable with it. Are you comfortable with it? Are you struggling with whether you'll push aside all of the troublesome things that are coming to light about this bill, trying to decide if you want to be the reason why women lose fundamental rights that we have had for over 40 years, making our bodies subject to politicians' opinions? Trying to decide if it's more risky to vote yes and make your party and your donors happy, but make the women very angry, or vote no and make your party mad in order to respect women. You may be wishing that this was a mainstream bill, one that was popular and reasonable, but it's not. You could have written a bill like that, but you didn't. You could have amended the bill after hearing public comment, but you didn't. You could have consulted the medical experts that Senator Adcock cited to you, but you didn't. You could have asked the business community if this would make it harder to recruit and retain female employees here in North Carolina, but you didn't. At least I assume you didn't, because the bill before you gives the average pregnant person only about 2 weeks from when she typically finds out she's pregnant to when she has to schedule her abortion if that's what she wants to do. She can't wait any longer to think about it and consult with medical professionals or her family or her pastor. She'll have to decide quickly, because thanks to you in this bill, the clock is ticking fast. She has many barriers she's got and requirements that she's going to need to get through. And all or most of the clinics that are open now will be closed due to this bill, so she'll have to search for the care she wants, probably at a hospital. And if she can find a doctor who will treat her, wait for an appointment, travel pretty far, come in person to multiple doctor visits, wait 72 hours, which is, by the way, is the longest of any state in the nation that has a waiting period, possibly endure a surgical abortion instead of a safer, less invasive medication abortion because you've banned access to medication abortion after week 10, pay for unnecessary and unwanted procedures that are disguised as informing her, fill out extensive forms that require her to send her private medical records to the state, listen to a script written by politicians, and more. And if she is seeking an abortion due to rape or incest, she still has to go through all of those hoops. And she will also have to tell her doctor those details so that the doctor can determine if she meets the requirements of the new law. She no longer has the choice to remain private about the crime committed against her. Instead, she must tell the doctor by the 20th week of pregnancy in order to be granted the right by her government to end that pregnancy. And if she's a minor, again, the police will be notified. It's unthinkable and cruel that you would do that to women and girls, making a serious, sometimes very difficult situation much worse, more rushed, more stressful, more expensive, and in many cases effectively making it impossible for her to access abortion, forcing her to carry that pregnancy against her will. I notice you're trying to drum up support for your bill by saying that the alternative to Senate Bill 20 is some version of abortion on demand until birth. Well, that's preposterous. No doctor would abort a healthy fetus late in pregnancy. That didn't happen under Roe. That isn't happening now under our current law. If a healthy pregnancy with a viable fetus must be ended before full term, that's called a cesarean section. And the standard of care is to safeguard both lives. If you think we need this bill, Senate Bill 20, in order to ensure that doctors don't abort nearly full-term viable fetuses, rest assured, we do not. That doesn't happen. Talk to any doctor and they'll set you straight. And it's even worse that you gaslight us into thinking that SB 20 is for our own protection or for our morality that you are trying to protect. This is not how modern societies treat women. It's not what happens in European countries. It's not how American women have been treated prior to the Dobbs decision. It's not what North Carolina women want or deserve. And no matter how many other non-abortion initiatives that you include in this bill, they won't make up for the harm that the abortion ban will cause. If you really want to encourage adoption or improve foster care or child care or stop domestic abusers from buying firearms, improve maternal and child health, you could have done all of that in a separate bill that didn't include this ban. But again, you didn't do that. It's really disingenuous to pile them in here now and attempt to dilute the bad with some good so that you can say we voted against those good things. Those were our bills, a lot of them. Should have passed them separately. And as I wrap up, I just want to say that as we have since the beginning of time, women and girls will continue to get pregnant. Some on purpose, some by mistake, and some against our will. Maybe someone you care about, a daughter, a granddaughter, or a coworker. Most will want to continue their pregnancy and will need an OB doctor to care for her to have a healthy pregnancy. Don't pass this bill and scare her doctor out of North Carolina. Others will decide that they aren't willing or able to continue the pregnancy. Some will decide instead to finish high school or college, or fight a new cancer diagnosis,
Senator Martin,
or leave in a...
if you could conclude your remarks, you're well over 10 minutes.
Very close, Mr. President. Thank you for the additional minute or two. They may decide instead to leave an abusive relationship or keep a job to support the children that they already have. Don't pass this bill and make the decision for her. So it's down to the last moments here. I hope that at least one person who voted in favor of the abortion ban last week will change her or his mind today and stand up for women in our state and vote no.
Further discussion or debate?
For what purpose, the lady from Guilford, Representative Clemmons, rise.
To debate the motion.
The lady has the floor.
This morning, I got my 3 children ready for school, like I do every morning, and I braided my daughter's hair because she had picture day. And I took the boys to school, and she got in carpool like she does every morning. And I sat down at my kitchen table and cried because I knew I would be coming today to vote on a bill that will make her less safe and more likely to deal with trauma than she would if we did not override this veto tonight. And I feel helpless as a mother, which is a whole different level than I have felt in some of the other bills that have caused me angst as a legislator. My daughter will be 12 in about 3 weeks, and we're planning her birthday parties where she's trying to navigate friend groups. But before long, she'll be 15 and 16. And I am so worried about her and the high likelihood that the parts of this bill dealing with rape could be her life, because 1 in 5 women, 1 in 5, are raped in the United States. Before, if this bill were not to go into law, if she were 16 and had sat with that experience and came to me scared, wanting to know what to do, my job would not be to say, Letty, this is what I think you should do. Because it wouldn't be my decision. It would be hers. If this was not overridden, she could call from her phone with her pink phone case and sticker and do an appointment over the phone, and 72 hours later, go and get medicine and go home and be able to make that choice herself. If this bill becomes law, my scared 16 or 17 or 18-year-old would go to talk to a physician, have to look at an ultrasound, be told risks of an abortion pill that is one of the safest medical procedures we have. My scared 16-year-old would have to be given notice that she could see the remains of her unborn child. Then she'd have to sit with all of that for 72 hours. And I picture her in her room, surrounded by her posters, sitting with that. Then she'd have to go back to the doctor to actually get the medicine. And even then, she couldn't move on. She'd have to come back 7 to 14 days later, being re-traumatized over and over again, as if the initial trauma of rape were not enough. Would she and her friends know that the data about the woman's county, state, age, race, number of births, whether they do their appointment has to be reported to DHHS, and would that scare them from getting the help that they need? What if she was so scared that she didn't tell me until she was 14 weeks pregnant? If I noticed she started wearing baggy clothes and I didn't know why because she was afraid, then we'd add that she'd have to go to a hospital in this bill. Or what if she is pregnant with a very wanted baby, and she's told that that baby won't make it? With this bill, she would now have to sit as if looking at the nursery she'd already decorated wouldn't be enough. She would have to sit and listen to a referral for neonatal and palliative care to discuss options for, well, it was likely a stillborn, but sometimes results in live births. We would be taking my traumatized daughter, feeling the worst feeling of her life, and making it worse. Many people in my caucus had planned to speak tonight. I was not one of them. But I want Letty, I want your daughters, I want your daughters and granddaughters to know that there are many of us who do not want to make their lives harder or worse. And I hope she'll know that when given the chance, I spoke up for her. I hope you'll vote no.
For what purpose, the gentleman from Cumberland, Representative Lucas, rise.